On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, great show for you guys. Had an absolutely packed one. Talked with Kareem Rush, Mizzou men's basketball legend. Great interview, one of my favorites that we've done here on the show. Talked to him all about his time in Mizzou, time in the NBA with the Lakers and his pro career, and also about his new ventures in the Bourbon world and stuff for you guys to get involved in with that as well. Has a really cool venture that we talked all about with him. So great interview with Kareem. Super cool to talk with him again. Just a Mizzou legend. Super cool to catch up with him. Also had a bunch of news stuff. Talked about a new transfer portal possibility for Mizzou men's basketball. A guy they've been linked to, intriguing target there. A couple of football transfer headlines as well. And then Kenny and I had a conversation about Mizzou pursuing a general manager role for men's basketball. So that was a really good convo as well. Then finished up with quick hits. So pack show, great show. News cycle never stops. And we will talk about Mizzou gymnastics on Monday's show. Had a bunch of logistics to record around this week, but we will talk about them and all their achievements in the NCAA tournament and advancing, because that was absolutely spectacular. So we'll get to that on Monday's show, but we have a super packed one for you guys here for Friday. So enjoy that. Enjoy the Kareem Rush interview. And yeah, let's dive into it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, April 18th, and Mizzou men's basketball is modernizing. They're looking for a GM, as you can see from the headline from Kenny's good teammate over at Mizzou today, Kyle McCavery. That's what we're starting the show with. We have a packed show, Kenny, that Peyton is missing the first portion of. I was going to say due to illness. I guess it's not directly due to that, but I can call it due to that.
He's feeling better. He is.
Oh,
he told
good.
Me this morning. He's feeling good.
Beautiful. We spliced this show over the course of the week. So Peyton has done segments that'll go later in the show, but it's earlier in the week when he was sick. He's been battling. He's a trooper. But anyway, all that logistics aside, that's where we're going to start the show, Kenny. We have some football and hoops offseason news to talk about, but really the headline that grabbed my attention a bunch was this. It was Mizzou men's basketball. They posted they're looking to hire a general manager. Obviously, there's a couple assistant coach openings as well, which we'll touch on. But I thought it was interesting here. And I'll let you summarize kind of what Kyle talked about over on Mizzou today. But that's popped out to me. Obviously, a thing you're starting to see more in college sports in general with the NIL stuff and having a general manager. What did Mizzou articulate they want their role for the men's basketball general manager to look like?
I think even with, so many staffers and personnel that are part of these teams, like you look at the bench, there's a lot of bodies in those chairs. You have a lot of staffers that are not only recruiting, but also doing their job as a coach and helping with development. I think one of these things that helps the most is just overseeing, that talent, overseeing the guys that they're evaluating, the ones that they're looking at in the transfer portal or even in the high school ranks. And that's one of the primary things for this, managing general manager. Who do they want to go after? How are they going to build this roster? Because when it comes down to it, everyone thinks, Dennis Gates has a big board, and he probably does, guys that the staff has put together, and he's kind of, splicing up the players and trying to fit the best needs of what the team is. But at the same time, you got to have someone that's, looking over that even more. There's so much that a head coach does. And when you bring in a general manager like this, you have opportunities to look at just beyond, just recruiting talent, roster acquisition. You're handling NIL funds, which is the biggest thing right now when you're trying to build these rosters. I mean, you're handing out contracts. So that's pretty much what it means is what you're doing. So it's a lot of that, looking at strategic, supervision, managing a budget just for the team as well, team traveling, scheduling, who are they going to play? Because, a lot of that falls on, the coaches talking with the athletic department, who do they want to bring in for some of those blood donor games? And, as mean as that kind of sounds sometimes, that's what you're doing. You have to bring in teams that you'll beat and the ones you're going to have to pay. So it's just a lot, just going in there. But I think it is a good position and something that, a lot of sports are doing, not just basketball. Football has been a big one as well. And Drinkwitz really hasn't, closed the door on that. But we've seen Chase Daniel go out there and say, maybe I'll be the next GM, of Mizzou football. I think he was mainly joking in that regard.
He could do the Trey Young thing where he's like, I'm a staffer, but it's really just, I'm a face that you can put onto the program to sell recruiting. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one big thing too that I was going to ask you, Jack, kind of spinning off of, what these duties look like. I don't really think there's anyone in the NBA right now with, Mizzou ties that maybe Mizzou would consider. I know like Michael Porter Jr. is the biggest name out there. Kobe Brown is just fresh, in the NBA scene. I don't think he would take on any of that just to be like, a face or name to it. But at the same time, I don't think Mizzou would really go after maybe a former player. I think they're going to go after someone with a lot of experience in this and, a lot of experience in sports business, working with agencies and players and player development. So there's a lot of, factors that go into that. But you look, Steph Curry is helping out at Davidson.
Right.
And like you mentioned, Trey Young with Oklahoma. There's a lot of other guys out there too, going back to their alma mater and helping out any way they can. But I think just for Mizzou's sake, I think they're going to go after, a business guy, a guy with, basketball experience, but maybe not necessarily a former player.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I don't think a former player has the right qualifications to do this. They obviously have the name brand. You think of another really popular one, aside from an athlete, right, is Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj, who's over at St. Bonaventure now, who tweeted, I think he tweeted the other day something about them getting some recruit.
He tweets a bomb emoji and then like another emoji. I think they tweeted like an Italian flag, so maybe they got an Italian
someone from
recruit.
Italy. Yeah, but I think you are going to have it like players and name recognition, all that stuff's great. I think you can have those liaisons. I mean, we'll get to we talked to Kareem Rush a little bit about that in the interview later on in the show. But I think what you need in a GM role like this is exactly what you said. You want someone who almost has some experience outside of football. Oh, I almost said outside of football, outside of basketball. I say that because I'm thinking of the example that I covered closely with when I covered Alabama for their football team. They had a guy named Courtney Morgan as their general manager who was a former player. He played at Michigan and had a lot of those connections, but really that was why they hired him. He went back, he's from California, built a bunch of connections out there, started his own kind of agency business. So he understands the business side of it too. And I think that's what Mizzou's going to look for in whoever they hire. I think that's what they should look for, is someone who, yes, understands the money, or can at least try to understand the money that's involved in all this and keep Mizzou competitive in that space, because that's what's so important now. In addition to, like you said, and it's a hard role to fill because there's a lot of, you have that factor, but also, like you said, the relationship with the players and managing the current team and just being, a good presence around the locker room and stuff. So, it's interesting. I think if you're a candidate that fits that bill, you're going to have a lot of people calling you for jobs, because I think this is just a more general GM conversation. But I think that's what Mizzou's going to look for. I know Kyle noted in his stories that it's going to primarily focus on recruiting and talent evaluation, as well as relationship building with athletes. I think that's spot on. I think, you throw some of the understanding of the financials in there. I think it's going to be really interesting who they end up going with. I'm excited to see, and also it's different from a coaching race, right? Like, who knows how public the names will be and the candidates. So maybe they'll just kind of do sort of an in the shadows hire here, but I'm really excited to see who they go with, because this is a super important role and I'm glad Mizzou's doing it.
And spinning off that, this is just kind of my final take on it. I don't really know how fast you want to fill this role too.
Mm-hmm.
You do have 2 roster spots still to fill. The portal closes for entries on April 22nd. So it's, a couple days away, less than a week away. But at the same time, you can still add guys after that date. So I do wonder if the plan is for Missouri basketball to get that done as soon as possible, or just take the time. I feel like it's fair to say the name that Mizzou goes with, the person, man or woman that Mizzou goes with, we probably have never heard of before. I think there's definitely people out there that will have known this person just from the basketball world or sports world or agency business world. But at the same time, it might not be a name that you and I know, Jack. So it just really kind of comes down to, I think a lot of people look at, the ones like Andrew Luck. I think that's the biggest GM name just in college sports right now, with him going back to Stanford and helping out that football program. So I do wonder, I don't think Mizzou is going to go after a name that big in its own alma mater, but, it's something that you need to just kind of put in the back of your mind. Don't think too much about some of those big names, because Mizzou might find, a diamond in the rough, real basketball mind and just what the program needs.
I might
Um,
I
Go
might
ahead.
take that on as a challenge just to piggyback for a second. I want to look back into Dennis's background because this feels like, who among past connections could maybe be a person for this here. I feel like it's maybe something you tap if whatever he has in the NBA world, you look into some, execs or lower level people there. I don't know. And that's why it's fun. Maybe I'll do it. I'll be the GM. I don't understand financials enough. I'd love to do it from like a recruiting and roster management standpoint. All of that just sounds like a, you know, real life version of like a 2K rebuild, which, we've all done. But yeah, the money would throw me off. I'm bad with numbers. I'm gonna officially take my hat out of the race for Mizzou's GM role. I'm out of the race.
I don't know if Mizzou knew you were in the race, but that's that's helpful too.
I'm
But
just
yeah, it
putting
definitely
it where
has
I'm
to
out.
be. If you're the smartest person, for this job, it has to be an awesome job. Just to be so
Yeah.
fun to. I mean, it's going to be frustrating at times when you miss on guys, but when you have that knowledge and the understanding of what you're doing, building a roster has to be a lot of fun in the college ranks
Right.
for that job. Jumping just one portal thing right here, and I was still wondering about this too, Jack. Just kind of pivoting back. Dennis Gates still has two staff spots to fill, just
Yeah.
among his assistants with Summers and CY leaving. So that's just another thing. And then there was a player development role that's open as well. So that's another thing to kind of monitor if the GM comes in before then. How much will the GM kind of help in finding those spots for the team, even though maybe the focus isn't primarily on the assistants. One thing just in the portal world that we'll mention, it's kind of slowed down a tiny bit, even though Mizzou still has 2 roster spots to fill, kind of still looking at, who's going to jump in here late into the portal or who's still on the board. If things change with eligibility, if some of these guys might get another year due to a new NCAA ruling. But Adante Holloman, point guard from Georgia Southern. I wish Peyton was here to talk about him. Peyton is a big Josso fan, more on the football side, but just for you, Jack, I mean, is this a guy that you can kind of see fill one of those final 2 roster spots? Because, in my mind, he's 6 foot, 175. He's not going to fit that wing spot that maybe you're looking for, just a pure 3-point shooter, but he is a good guard size and he had decent numbers at Georgia Southern.
Yeah, was 17 points per game last year. He actually led the conference in scoring. He was 3rd team All Sun Belt honors. Winding career. Started at UTRGV, Rio Grande Valley, transferred to UTSA, then to Georgia Southern. So wherever he ends up will be his 4th school. I do. I mean, it's the big thing that the portal has become real simple for me with Mizzou. I'm just looking at guys who can shoot the ball. I really think that's the big void still. I know, Dennis probably thinks there's a lot there still with guys like Jacob Cruz. Maybe you unlock Trent Pierce's 3-point shooter or shot a little bit more next year. I thought a jump, but I really think they need another portal guy who can shoot. He's 38% on 8.5 attempts per game. That's very good. Did have like fairly high usage, but his kind of Torvik numbers. Shout out Bart Torvik, our Kenny's favorite analytics site. His numbers aren't bad. I think he's fine. I believe he's visiting East Carolina today. I saw that tweet from Jeff Borzello. VCU is another team I've seen interested. So feels like a realistic get for Mizzou here, and maybe a guy you can take, a little bit of a flyer on if you think he can give you something from a pure shooter perspective. Dennis kind of strikes me as someone who wants to get someone who's a little more dynamic, which is great, but with where this roster's at, to me, I think you have to kind of replace that output that Caleb Grill gave you collectively. I think no one's going to obviously do it alone. I mean, that would be a wild ask. But I think Holloman is someone who can potentially start to build toward that. He's a good shooter. So I wouldn't mind it, but we'll see how much Mizzou pursues for him.
Yeah, with 1 year of eligibility left, listed as a junior, and that can change. Eligibility is changing so much in the last couple of weeks. So I think it is maybe something to look for too if Mizzou goes after a rising senior, so it doesn't really clog the guard position in the future as much as everyone wants to lean on. The transfer portal will fix everything. It's going to address everything. Mizzou has shown that twice now in on this basketball team with Dennis Gates at the helm. I still think development is so key. I mean, if you didn't rely on development, you wouldn't have found Anthony Robinson, who pretty much turned into an NBA draft prospect. He was on, big boards. He's going to stay this year, but he really developed this past year. And I still think that's, something to know when you're looking at this, especially with a guy like Aaron Rowe, who's kind of a similar size to Adante Holloman, who's, next up in the class of 2025 with the Tigers. Spinning into the football world, there's a couple of names on here, and I really hope that we don't have to do a cut-in at some point for the show. But Gavin Hoffman is on a visit right now with Mizzou, and talked to his agent earlier today. We're recording this part of the show on Thursday.
Thursday afternoon specifically. That's how much we have to get into the specifics because things just keep happening.
Yeah.
It has been, I don't know, we're just going to have to record segments of Unwritten every day in the off season. That's just how it is now. Anyway, Kenny, continue.
So Gavin Hoffman is a guy to know. The tight end position right now. Moved from wide receiver to tight end in high school. He was had Mizzou in one of his finalists back in the class of 2024 that summer, before his 2023 season in the senior year of high school. But looking back at the Tigers now, he has connections to the university with his cousin being Sophie Cunningham, the former Mizzou women's basketball player. But among all the interest he received right when he officially entered the portal on Wednesday, Mizzou was just the school that he decided to go to. Durham Cato, Eli Drinkwitz, those conversations with him just went a long way. And among all those visits or all that interest, he only set up a visit with Mizzou. So I don't want to promise you guys anything or tell you anything. We're just talking with people around him and just with his agent. It does sound like Mizzou will have a great chance of landing Gavin Hoffman and adding another rising tight end talent to that room for Durham Cato, who missed on a couple of guys when he took over the tight ends position in the class of 2025. So bringing in a guy that's a redshirt freshman going into next year, it's definitely a good look.
Yeah, we'll see if he officially commits. We'll later after we're done recording this, we'll cut in and talk even more about him. Probably get Peyton's take on him as well, just to, in case. But yeah, good one to have on the radar, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and sticking, in that transfer window of guys that will be on campus for Mizzou, Jalen Early is another name to know, offensive lineman from Florida State. He, I was originally told Friday, but he will be visiting Mizzou on Monday. Recruited by Brandon Jones, and Brandon Jones was at U of H when Jalen Early was in high school, so he's good familiarity there. Shown a lot of versatility with 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's played both guard positions, played on the tackle. He's a good run blocker, which I think will be something noteworthy. I don't think he's going to end up, being that left tackle if he joins this Mizzou offensive line group. But when you run a wide zone offense, it is good to know that you have an offensive tackle that has good run blocking grades. Pass blocking was kind of up and down last year. As he kind of shifted through that offensive line. But that versatility is very key, and, just an offensive lineman to watch. And just some other names I'll throw out there that we're not going to really have everything. Oh, sorry, that's our script. Everything will just names that to know is Xavier Lloyd, wide receiver from Illinois State, also connected to the Tigers. Joe Cotton, South Dakota, offensive tackle. Big.
He's gotten like everybody under the sun, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm mentioning some of these names. Some of these guys will visit. Some of these guys are just receiving interest from Mizzou. Mark Cannon Jr., another guy from Illinois State. He's a defensive back. Mizzou's shown an interest, even with losing some cornerbacks to the portal, like Jamarian Wayne. It still might need a little bit of depth. Julia Neal was another name that kind of popped up a few weeks ago or a week ago from Fresno State, former Stanford defensive back. So you're just looking, maybe some cornerback room, and then, quarterback and defensive tackle maybe could use some depth as well. You just never know. But those are just some of the names that have been thrown out there with connections to Mizzou as of right now. Portal will be open until next Friday. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of roster spots to fill. I think it's about like 8 or 9 right now that Mizzou can go to hit that 105 threshold for next year with the new NCAA roster limits.
A lot of moving parts. It's a good way to articulate it until we kind of settle this thing down. And quick hitting too, like obviously a couple guys still entering the portal from Mizzou as well. I know we've gone over a couple names. They've had a few entries throughout, but some later ones in the past, I guess, since we spoke to y'all last. Talon Chandler, the offensive lineman, 3-star in the class of 2024, hit the portal. Kenny, I'll run through all 3. Feel free to give your added thoughts on all of them. Only played in the UMass game, Talon Chandler. And then 2 on the defensive side, on the defensive line, actually. Joe Moore hit the portal after 2 years at Mizzou. Only 2 tackles. He had a productive season in 2023. Had 13 and a sack, but only 2 tackles and half a sack last year.
I'll jump in early. He did get injured early on in the season, and this was actually his last year of eligibility. So he's another one of those guys that falls in that Josh Gray camp. that is probably just hoping for another year of eligibility. So right now he doesn't have anything. So he wasn't with the team in the spring. He wasn't on the spring roster, but he's a guy that's just, hoping that he gets another opportunity to play.
Yeah, there's moving parts with that too in terms of like waivers and some of the lawsuit stuff. We'll see how that changes eligibility. And then this to me is probably the biggest one. Eddie Kelly Jr. 20 tackles and a sack last year. Transferred from Georgia Tech. Started at South Florida. I know he was kind of in that defensive end 2 role. So some depth maybe having to be filled. He also, Kenny, hit the transfer portal.
Yeah, I'll talk about Eddie Kelly real quick. Just with him, it was just kind of interesting. He kind of fell down the depth chart. Last year was a really banged up defensive room. You lose Darius Smith, you lose Joe Moore. You're losing Darius Smith before the season starts. You haven't even seen him in a Mizzou uniform yet.
Yeah.
You lose Joe Moore with some good depth. So Eddie Kelly really stepped up. He had a very, very good story as well. His mother passed away last year, and he was very resilient. Coming and playing right away after that, and having a really strong game early on in the season at home. But he just fell down the depth chart. With 1 year of eligibility left, he could have redshirted, but at this point in your career, you're a rising senior. Why do the red shirt now? Go somewhere where you can play. And I think no one is mad at Eddie Kelly for that. And Brian Early, of course, good guy Brian Early continues to do this. He gave a rave review on Twitter to his former edge rusher. So it's just one of those things like Ja'Kai Lang where he's leaving the program, just wants an opportunity to be an every down guy, and I'm sure he'll find that. You can never have enough edge depth. You can never have enough big bodied edges. And a noteworthy thing too about Eddie Kelly, he was working with some of the defensive tackles at times in spring, and so it kind of looked like maybe he would move in. But just for him, he'll find a defensive line somewhere.
Yeah, that one's a bit of a tougher one, but yeah, obviously seems like he wanted more consistent playing time. Kenny, do you want to do the breaking one? We had another while we were recording.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to. Behind the scenes of how this whole rivals thing works, I have to insert his college profile, so he doesn't have one yet. But Austin Dendy just announced he's entering the transfer portal as well. Coming over, was an athlete, looked like he was going to play some safety for Mizzou, ended up joining the running back room. Another Pine Bluff guy from that 2023, 2024 classes, guys that were coming out of Pine Bluff High, is entering the portal. The other one being Courtney Crutchfield, who left during the winter portal and went to Arkansas. So I think it's up to 7 portal entries from guys that were scholarship players. So another guy leaving, maybe not too much of a surprise. Kind of in my mind, back of my mind, I was like, yeah, it's just kind of a hard position to crack when they're bringing in a lot of transfers to the running back room. And you get a guy like Marquise Davis in the class of 2025, early enrollee, receiving rave reviews too. So, this is one of those things where you kind of just wish Austin the best of luck, and you kind of just have to move forward with the running backs you have. Maybe they add another running back, just have another body in that room, but they are getting Brendan Haygood this summer, another 2025 signee. So I think it's in okay shape. It's just one of those things where you kind of just wave goodbye and, wish another guy best of luck.
Yeah, that one doesn't shock me, but that does bring the end to the stealing all the Arkansas guys, the billboard wars, and now you have him and Crutchfield in the portal, which is
Jordan Harris is still at Mizzou, still there, class of 2023. I will just one note on Taylor Chandler. It did surprise me a little bit to see him enter. I think he was a decent center backup as a freshman last year. He got the red shirt. Mizzou, I remember we talked about this, and Mizzou flipped him from Colorado. He's a Nevada guy.
That's right.
He wanted to be a Missouri Tiger, but for his best interest, he's going to look elsewhere. Mizzou's looking at, interior offensive linemen, like we mentioned with Early. So maybe he kind of knew the writing was on the wall. Dominic Gidice came in, and he's going to be an opportunity, a guy on the interior as well this year. So probably didn't see an opportunity to really hit the field. So that's just kind of where it goes from here.
Transfer season, it's busy. We'll have a couple more shows before that portal closes, like Kenny mentioned. But there you go, Kenny. Was there any more breaking news before we kick it to the Kareem Rush interview? This is the last chance. Otherwise, we're gonna have to cut in.
Hopefully not. I'm sure you and Peyton will cut in with something soon.
Yeah,
but enjoy Kareem. He was a good conversation.
That's how it always goes. Yes, we will kick it to ourselves talking to Kareem Rush. Educated spirits, bourbon connoisseur now, and of course a Mizzou men's basketball legend. Talked to him about a bunch of stuff. It was one of my favorite interviews we've done. So we will kick it to ourselves and get you to that.
And now for something completely different.
Okay, we now welcome on a very special guest. He is one of the best to ever grace the hardwood at Mizzou. It is Kareem Rush. I'm sure a lot of you watching, listening will be well aware of who he is. Obviously, a legend for Mizzou men's basketball. Kareem, thank you so much for coming on. First and foremost, we appreciate it, and we want to talk to you. We have a bunch of questions about your time at Mizzou, obviously your time in the NBA. But I want to start off the bat with what you're doing nowadays, and we've got it, in our little bio here. If you're watching on the YouTube we made, I know you're delving into the bourbon world, and that's where I just want to start right off the bat. I know you're working with Educated Spirits, a company you started, and I just want to throw it over to you to kind of explain. I know you're doing a bunch of really cool stuff, in the bourbon sphere. You've got a bunch of Mizzou ties to it too. Just walk us through. Tell us about Educated Spirits, your venture, and how it ties to Mizzou, because it's really cool what you're doing, and we're excited to promote it and see it grow. What's it all about?
Well, I appreciate you. And first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. I have been doing the gauntlet of Mizzou podcast. So excited to be talking to former, to Tiger lovers out there. So, first and foremost, like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on. But a little bit about the bourbon. My post career has been very, very robust. I've done a lot of different things over the course of my playing days, and being an entrepreneur. I've always get presented different opportunities, and this one kind of came about 18 months ago. Kind of, flashback about to 2018. I played in the first year of Ice Cube's Big Three league, and there were literally 20 spots available. There were 150 guys of my level of experience trying out for this, for those spots. And then at the same time, there's a TBT tournament going on in Vegas that had 72 teams, $1 million take all. I took a deep dive into those tournaments and realized that 27 were alumni teams. So I said, why not create a league specifically for college alumni teams? I love to go back and play, in front of the Missouri fan base as well as my brother. So we did our first game here in Kansas City in 2018. We had 2 games in 2019. Obviously, through COVID, it's still on the shelf. We brought it back in 2022. We had our first game outside of Kansas City. We had Maryland versus Georgetown, sold that out. And then in 2023, we had 5 games. So along and throughout this course of building this professional league, I was tied to and introduced to a bunch of different legends from all these different universities that have the same level of credibility that I have in Missouri. And all these guys are looking for an opportunity to kind of, continuously, branding themselves. And unlike NIL today, we didn't get a chance to maximize who we were in college. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of come back and provide, not only, most of these guys come back for, autograph sessions or get paid appearances, but, I'm coming in with a business mindset where we actually have our own brand that's owned and operated by players that we can kind of, market and showcase to the fan base that love us. We created a very cool, unique, custom product where it's not just a bourbon; it's a collector's item. Inside the box, there's a photo of me. It has a quote from me. It has my, my career accolades. Each one of the collectors is signed by that legend. So we do 500 per player. We do 4 to 6 legends per school, and we're doing another cool, experience tied to it. Willy Wonka style. In one of those 500 boxes, there'd be a golden ticket. If you win that golden ticket, you get a chance to attend the rivalry game with me and my brother, or host a watch party with a bunch of different legends of those schools. So to start the brand off, I did, MU and KU black, gold, and crimson and blue, obviously, for my brother in the rivalry. That's right there. And then also as entrepreneur, as former athletes get into the spirit space, I think it's a good status for us to, partner up and have and own our own brands as opposed to just, signing our likeness off to some other brand. We own and operate it, from the ground up and built a business. So I'm excited to do it, with my brother, and as well as other players around the country. We're going to start obviously with KU, but the plan is to launch with other major universities, other major rivalries in different marketplaces, and allow these players to maximize who they are, selling a really cool product.
I want to talk about Brandon there and just that rivalry. I know not a lot of people, get the opportunity to go to 2 different schools, with a pair of brothers, and you guys grew up with, MU, KU, but doing this together. I mean, how have you guys continue to just better each other through this process? Make this, a teamwork thing at the same time, but also maybe a little bit of competition. Maybe he wants a little bit more Crimson Soul.
I'm the older brother, so it's my job to set the stage up for my younger brother. So this venture's been all me. I brought Brandon in as a partner as he's kind of finding his way post career and transitioning into business, where I've been doing this for a lot longer than him. So for me, be able to kind of help him and showcase how he can maximize and monetize who he was as a legend at KU is kind of my role and my duty as an older brother to kind of set him up properly. So Brandon's new to the business. I've been operating this by myself with my partners based out of Kentucky with a couple other guys that built it around. But you know, my ownership group will be primarily players. Like I talked to Mario Chalmers, Ricky Paulding, Arthur Johnson, all those guys that I'm doing, Corey Jones. So we're not going to do basketball. We're going to do all sports. Some of the coaches, I probably do something for Coach Stewart, and I probably do something for Coach Self KU. So the brand's going to be all tied around college nostalgia, just that fan and adulation that we all have for our universities, packaged in a really nice collectible item.
I was curious about that too. If it was ever gonna like, were you thinking about expanding toward like other Mizzou athletes potentially with it? And then I know that site, it's educatedspirits.io, right? Because I know people will probably want to go find it. And the bottle is really cool, by the way. I love the
Thank you.
design of it. It's a good design. I'm curious too, with the bourbon specifically. Was that all your venture? I mean, how was that process? Just like trial and error, taste testing it to find the flavor that you want, on top of obviously the cool branding and the marketing behind it too.
Yeah. So my partners are based out of Kentucky. Bob Marino, Ziggy Cormender. These guys are big in the spirits world, but they basically created a white labeling service for bigger brands. So think in the veins of your Ryan Reynolds Aviation Gin, the Rocks, Terramana, like all these celebrity-driven alcohol brands are really popular if you have the fan base to kind of launch it. So when I told them about my ABL, I was like, we don't necessarily have to rely on one, major star. We can pair up with all these different universities. We got access to 300 different universities that have all these fan bases that love them. So why not create a brand specifically for the college, fan base and these, alumni that love these players? Like I said, if you create a great product, I believe that it's been flying off the shelves from Mizzou. I'm trying to get the KU guys to kind of pick up the slack, but so far so good on the Mizzou side. But it's been like I said, for me, basketball was kind of what I'm known for. But all my life I've been kind of creative guy and had different interests. And this is just one of the many that I've dived into. I have, like I said, the ABL League is kind of the overarching idea behind this, which we're gonna relaunch that in 2026. But I got a bunch of other stuff that's coming down the pipeline. I'm gonna do a coffee brand that's tied to it. So we're doing kind of a day and night campaign. I don't want to market bourbon to college kids, but I can certainly sell some coffee to them. And with those cool boxes, I thought about doing a really cool online marketplace that allow artists around the world to just put the template on there. They can design their own custom box, and if I like it, then they can share in the proceeds of the sales of those boxes. So kind of create an online marketplace.
Yeah.
We can bring in all these guys together. Fans of these players. People can sell their talents in our product, and then like I said, it's kind of a win-win for all of us.
Love it.
I mean, I do like just shifting kind of more into your time at Mizzou. I mean, obviously, when you bring up a list of like the best players in Mizzou basketball history, your name is not going to be far down that list. Obviously, I'm sure you're conscious of like the love that the fan base has for you just with this entire brand you're creating and everything. But I mean, just kind of looking back in your time at Mizzou, I mean, what like how big of an impression did it really leave on you? I mean, obviously big enough to like do something like this, but I mean, just what did Columbia and just your time at Mizzou really mean to you?
I mean, it was really my coming out party. All my life, I was, under the shadow of my older brother, Jerron, who was an amazing player, from 7th and 8th grade as was ranked the best player in, in the country in his class. So even throughout my high school career, it was always Jerron's little brother. So, my time in Mizzou was kind of allowing me to kind of build my own name and eventually, make my way to the NBA. So, Quinn and Tony Harvey and all the coaches that recruited me and brought me down there, it definitely was the foundation to everything that I did. And basketball has been kind of the gateway to all of my different opportunities I've had post career. It's going to be something that serves me for the rest of my life. And it all started down in Mizzou. So, of course, I got to have love and affinity for that. And I was a hometown kid. So it definitely means something special to be able to stay home and represent, my hometown university in such a good way.
I know you were one of Quinn Snyder's first, big recruits at Mizzou.
I was the first. I was the first.
The first. My bad. Let me set the record straight. The first. And I'm just curious, when you look back at that time, I mean, how did you kind of watch him and along with him just sort of start to build that program up? Obviously, both you and him have a lasting legacy. He arrives as this kind of hotshot Duke assistant. You guys go to the Elite Eight and reach some real big heights under him. I mean, just what was it like to kind of see him build up that program and be a part of it, obviously, on campus, and see kind of the community around it grow? Just, what was that like being a part of that and starting to make history, build that program under Coach Snyder, and just how was he to play for as well?
Yeah, that's my guy. I mean, that was like one of my closest guys. Quinn came in, he's sort of 32-year-old, came in and really kind of sold himself on my mom and grandma, like in my grandma's house with Tony Hari, and it was over once he started playing with his hair and smiling and stuff. So then he told me, like he said, he was going to come in and help me and allow me to be a foundational piece to the program. I was close to coming anyway because my best friend at the time, Josh Kroenke, we were coming together. So it was like, let's go to Mizzou and make our name. So it was a match made in heaven. Me and Quinn had the same birthday, so we aligned on a lot of different things from a mental standpoint. But he was a great player too. I've always watched him at Duke and knew he was coming from a great pedigree. Knew he was a great player, and we just clicked. I remember first day on campus, we riding around his drop top, Mercedes Benz with his hair flowing, and all the girls screaming for him as supposed to be. So definitely was a fun time. Obviously, he went through his thing, the deal he went through, but from my 3 years, yeah, he was my biggest proponent and really allowed me to expand my game and do what I did to eventually make the NBA.
As you've seen like Mizzou change over the years, the past 2 decades, and with the rivalry coming back too, I mean, what are just some positive, stretches that you've seen from Mizzou? Like what steps has Dennis Gates and his crew kind of taken to bring back Mizzou basketball?
Yeah, I mean, anything's coming from an 0-18 is better than we did. So that was challenging to watch. As an alumni, and I know Dennis personally. I actually got a call with Dennis tomorrow. If we can do some stuff and just kind of talk about how I can get back involved with it. But to see what he had success this first year, I've known Dennis since we were like 17 at Michael Jordan's flight school. We got a chance to meet each other there. So when he got the job, I was excited, for what he was going to bring. The first year was great. Obviously, the 0-18 is tough to come back from, but the way they got regrouped and did a 180 this year was certainly amazing to see, and I'm proud of the culture he's built. So, in this new age with the portal, you never know what's going to happen next year. So I'm curious to kind of talk to him tomorrow and kind of see what the strategies are moving forward for the team, and hopefully he can continue to build on what they did last year because I'm assuming the SEC is not going to get any easier moving forward. With it being so tough last year, but he showed that he's the coach to kind of come back from such a terrible season that get these guys back to where they were last year was certainly impressive to see.
I mean, you mentioned there you have a call with Dennis Gates set up for Wednesday, the 16th. I mean, have you talked to Dennis before? I mean, how is he? How receptive is he to just kind of talking to past alumnus of the program? He's talked a lot in the past about wanting to hear from them, but I'm curious just your take on it.
Yeah, when he first got the job, we all got on. So there's a bunch of us, me, Grauer, I think Hafer, AJ. I think a lot of these major universities, having that brotherhood and have that connection with former players is very impactful and useful, to the current staff. So I think he understands that, having these guys, especially guys that have NBA, experience and high level overseas, whatever it be, we can be a resource to him, especially for me in Kansas City, recruiting. I'm more than willing to kind of lend my name and lend a hand in any way I can help the program. Obviously, I want to see the school succeed and get back to where we need to be. So I'm excited to talk to him. Like I said, with Educated Spirits, it gives me a chance to have something to kind of really dive back into the school and come down there and do it. My daughter's actually on the volleyball team, so I come back and see some games. But I would love to kind of get back involved with the basketball portion and do whatever I can to help.
I'm sure some of that, I know you talked about it, and I love that piece, by the way, with Educated Spirits and it being you guys sort of capitalizing off your brand when you couldn't at the time. It's your version of NIL. I'm sure some of the proceeds will go to the volleyball program. I know with your daughter, which is great.
5% of all sales go back to a Mizzou scholarship.
There we go. Yeah, and volleyball building a program as well, which is exciting. I do want to throw it back again though. Just I know on that Elite Eight run, you guys were a 12 seed. I know it was an up and down season. I won't ask about the ending to Oklahoma as much as that always stings. But when you look back at that run through the tournament, I'm a huge March Madness fan. We all are. What was your favorite memories when you think about that season, maybe that run and how things started to click? Just what was your favorite memory of that time? Because I know a lot of fans listening will have enjoyed, watching you guys, and it was obviously a big year that season.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of expectations coming into that junior year. Just coming off the Duke game in my sophomore year when I had all 30 and with the cast on my hands. So we came in, I believe, ranked, I think number 2 in the country. So we had a lot of expectations. I came back so I can win Player of the Year and do all these great things. So the year was definitely up and down. I don't think we realized the magnitude of losing someone like Grauer, and just how that worked for the team. But through all that, through all the ups and downs, as any team wants to do, you want to get hot, towards the end of the season. And we did. We had that magical run, and if we didn't have another one of our worst games of my career. I mean, not in my career, but as a team against
Yeah.
Oklahoma, we would have been the only, we would have made that Final Four. But the run was magical. We got a chance to come back a few years ago, 20 years, and get down to Columbia and get a chance to reconnect with all the guys, and yeah, and it was great. So, the tournament time, you got to go a little step further. All three of my years was definitely something special.
I was curious too, like when you're in it, in the NCAA tournament. I mean, what kind of is there any sort of a different feeling versus when it's just a regular season game? Like how I guess do you kind of channel that like March magic? Because it's one thing obviously for us to see it, from afar, but I guess what's that kind of like being in it? How different is it from just typical, game that you've obviously gone through in the regular season, say?
I mean, regular season wins are great. You always want to win, but when it comes tournament time, it's a championship run. So I mean, you lose and you're out. So it's a different type of pressure. It's the pinnacle. It's like being in the playoffs or the finals in any other level. March Madness is my favorite basketball out of anything. I love watching March Madness. Even if I might not watch the college season, I'm gonna tune in for the 2 weeks or the 3 weeks when March Madness is going. I believe that's the case for everybody around the world. It's such a great tournament they put on. So the stories, the magical run, the Cinderellas, the unknown players, the whole entire deal is an amazing production, and they do a great job at it.
I hate to put you on the spot here, but this is a question I like to just ask people that just have a long history and just in the sport and what they're around. But you're talking about the drop top, driving around campus, and hanging out with Quinn Snyder and all these legends. I mean, just from that time, what's just one story that really just kind of defined like just a funny moment for that team, just something that made you guys brothers. What was something that you look back on, and that's that team.
Oh, well, I mean, we still brothers. I still talk to a lot of these guys, and one guy in particular, Ryan Kenner, who we call the Flow. He was a walk on, but he had a video camera, so he carried the video camera for probably 3 years. So we actually have a like a flow tape that circulates around the guys and really kind of showcases for like 3 years of us doing tournament time and reliving all those moments. And it's always good to go back and kind of see that stuff. And it's crazy that it was 30 years ago, but it's always fun. But Ryan did a great job of keeping that and having that, circulate with the guys.
I gotta ask about your time in the NBA because I mean, not many people in the world can say they had like a up close and personal seat for the Showtime Lakers, but you were or not the Showtime Lakers, sorry, the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. I gotta know, what was that experience like, and is Kobe, and in particular, I want to know, is Kobe's work ethic as extreme as people made it sound?
No, it certainly was. I mean, obviously, I came in right after the three-peat, so it was the height of being a Laker at the time. So it was an amazing experience. You don't really understand that there was such a circus until you get to go to another franchise and see that it's completely different. It's like being with the Beatles as opposed to being with a regular band. So it was definitely a thing between Shaq and Kobe. The drama there was not scripted. It was real. Two alphas kind of competing and butting heads, which all alphas in the NBA eventually do. As Kobe was a lot younger then, he wasn't the sage Yoda as he was towards the end of his career. He was still very much 25, chasing Jordan, chasing the greatness, and wanting to win everything and having to be his team that wins. So once we lost in 2004 to Detroit, he kind of forced a situation where that team was broken up, and then he forced his own path. But his work ethic was 100% real. To have that singular focus, to with all the distractions of being who he was and being in LA, to have this singular focus of being the best basketball player you can every single hour of the day, where it was just kind of mapped out, and that was his only focus, was pretty crazy to see. So, story in particular, my first practice, I'm trying to arrive a couple hours early to show him that I'm ready to play, and then Kobe's already out there half court working on footwork with no ball, just like dripping sweat. There's like this is what it is. And so I saw that firsthand, that that's kind of how it is. And I couldn't keep up with that. I'm a rookie. I'm trying to enjoy this first couple years in LA. I don't know. I ain't trying to do all that nonsense, but I get it. But to see top talent, top work ethic, you end up getting people like Kobe. It was amazing to see.
I was curious too, like, just hearing about all your own ventures. And I know obviously Shaq, I'm sure a great guy to share the court, share locker room with. Was he influential in any of that at all? Because I know he's like that too. He's, done so many things off the court and built up his own brand. Did you and him ever talk about that? Just kind of seems, maybe there's some similar ambition there for doing stuff, away from basketball as well.
No. I mean, I think any athlete, it's important to understand your brand and how to monetize and maximize that post
Sure.
career. So this stuff has been learned from me watching and me educating myself and trial and error through the course of my last 15 years post career. So I've definitely got mentors that I look up to outside of sports, people who do great things that I try to learn from. But Shaq is definitely a prime example of how to really leverage your brand and maximize it to its full capacity. But again, he's Shaq, so it's a lot of deals that come his way that don't come my way because I'm not Shaq. But again, not it's kudos to what he's built. But the one thing about me and Shaq is I'm a singer as well. So me and Shaq used to have like ringtone battles where he would rap and I would sing. So that would be kind of the cool
Oh,
thing that
that's
me and Shaq
awesome.
used to do. Yeah. So he'd get on the bus with his big speaker. This is back when Nextel phones were like little church. You had the ringtones. And so
Yeah.
we get on the
Mhm.
bus and see who had the best ringtones, and I sing the song, and he'd rap, and it was cool.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about Hold You Down. Can you walk us through that? You just right after your NBA career just kind of comes to a close, or you take a year off and then you start pursuing some music. I mean, was that kind of always something you were thinking about?
But yeah, I've been singing forever. I've been singing before basketball. So anybody who knows me, I sing all the time. So it wasn't no surprise to them. I wish I would have started a little early in my career when I was with the Lakers. I would probably have some huge hits. I actually just finished a new Lakers halftime, no, actually timeout song. I'm actually flying out to LA to pitch to
Oh,
Linda
cool.
Rambis and Jeannie Buss next week. And I did a Dodger version too. So I'm still heavily into music. I tried out for the voice a couple times, but music has always kind of been one of my first passion. Basketball just kind of took the lead once I got really good at it. But singing has always been in the background. It's something that I wanted to pursue. And like I said, when I got hurt, uh, I was looking at either go back to school or do I want to just kind of tap into music. So that's where the Promises Hold You Down video came from. Got in the studio for the first time, knocked it out, and it was like, yeah, you can actually put this out as a single. And so I started there. It was a top 40 Billboard song in the AC charts. I was touring around for a couple of years, but I always had the goal to get back to playing basketball at some point and kind of becoming that first NBA R&B star. So that was the big goal, but it didn't work out that way. But music is something I love and still to this day. So hopefully maybe that the Lakers song I'm doing now might be my big break where I got my first major hit.
Just one more from me. I know obviously you talked about it, like a big part of just this brand you've built is kind of that rivalry between you and your brother, just the Mizzou KU. I got to know, what was your reaction? I don't know if you were watching live this year when Missouri kind of got the win. We got back in the
Yeah, I
win
was
column
watching
this past year,
for
but
sure. I was certainly
okay.
watching.
Just
All my
you're a busy man, you never know.
no, any KU game I'm watching. So anytime I get a chance to do some bragging rights on these guys, because all my friends in high school are KU guys, and so the smack talk that I always talk is always there. It's never ending. I'm always around KU folks, So for me to be able to have talking some trash and we got to win is always good. It doesn't happen very often, but it's always a blessing when I get a chance to do it. So yeah, I was definitely watching.
Did
Well,
you get it? Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I was gonna say he got the bragging rights this year. I mean, what was your reaction? Like just the court storm, everything. It was like a moment like out of a dream for a Mizzou fan. I mean, what was
Yeah,
your
I mean,
reaction?
they were number one at the time too, so it was a huge win.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's to be expected. But we ended up having, like I said, I think we had three top five wins last year. I did a Mizzou post game basketball show on Sports Hub STL that is just launched a few months ago. So I did the post game basketball show for the last 6 or 7 games. So I was following the team quite a bit. So to see dive deep in how well Tamar played and Caleb and Mark Mitchell, all those guys, it was good to kind of finally, like I said, really kind of dive in and start really watching players. So I think Dennis got a great shot. Ant's coming back. We got defensive guys. I'm curious to see what we do in the portal. But like I said, I get filled in tomorrow from Dennis.
That's what we could drag you fully in the weeds of what we do every show, especially right now, is this is a lot of off season talk. But and I don't know if you were as nervous as we were with. I know watching that MUKU game when they cut it to what was it, like 4-3 with 4 minutes left. I was sweating, but yeah, it was great they could pull that one out. I've got one more too, kind of going back to the NBA realm. I'm curious. We got the NBA playoffs starting this weekend. Curious if you have a finals pick. And then I also have to ask, looking back at your own career, you dropped what was it, 18 points in a Western Conference Finals game, 6 threes. Just what was that like? I
Yes,
was curious.
6 3. Yeah. It wasn't. I mean, they wide open shot. That's my job to hit those. I mean, it
Fair.
became a big deal because of the magnitude of the game. But there were three in one half and three in another half. In today's game, I'd be shooting 18 threes a game. It'd been fantastic. I'd be making $30 million in today's game. But yeah, the magnitude of the game is kind of what made those threes stick out. Obviously, going 6 to 6 is cool. But as far as this year, I've watched off and on. I've been following. OKC. I like their team. I like the Lakers. With Luca, obviously. Then the Celtics are always good. So I'm a fan. I enjoy watching this. I don't really have a favorite. I'm just hoping for a good playoffs.
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings with this question, but you mentioned, like seeing some guys that are playing now and maybe some other guys that might have played before you that you watched growing up. I mean, who was a guy that wore the Mizzou black and gold that you wish you had an opportunity to just play with because you feel like you guys would have played so well together?
AP, my man. Yeah, AP for sure. We Kansas City kids. It would have been great to play with AP.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Kareem, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Oh, I had one more with the Timberwolves. Is Kevin Garnett as much of a trash talker as it's made out to be?
Yeah, him and Gary Payton are around the same levels.
Okay.
That's shit talking.
Okay.
For sure. But I mean, but if you're on KG's team, he like breathes energy to you. So it's like
Right.
it's the exact opposite for you being his teammate as it is being his opponent. Because if
Yeah.
he's on your teammate, he amps you up a couple notches every single game.
Love to play with him, hate to play against him. That's
Exactly.
yeah. Those are the best ones. Well, Kareem, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Give people a quick reminder again of where they can go get the bourbon, and just I know you're planning on doing on campus events as well in the future, right? With this.
Yeah, we have Brent. Like we're doing some cool stuff. I'm hollowing out one of those shipping containers, and I'm gonna build like a mobile unit that has like educated spirit, have a bartender. We come down to Mizzou tailgates. We're gonna have a basketball hoop on top of it. We get out play some 3-on-3 and do this full interactive deal. So we're building that now. Now I'll be ready for next season. But yeah, we're gonna do a bunch of activation stuff. So again, this brand is all about the love for your school, all love for the black and gold, college nostalgia, taste tradition in every sip. You can get it at www.educatedspirits.io. And I appreciate all the support. If you go out there and grab a bottle, MIZ.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to that in the description too for anyone watching on the YouTube. You can link to that. And Kareem, thank you so much. And you said you're having a conversation with Dennis. If you ever want to hop back on and just talk next season, we're always looking to riff. So
yeah, they should post it because I talked to the level department. So we're doing like a little 30-minute sit down where they're going to take some of that and
Sweet.
repurpose the content so you guys will see some of that.
Beautiful. We're looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Kareem. It's been awesome.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. We are joined back with our darling Peyton, who is battling severe illness. Peyton, we hope you're feeling better. Anyway, Kenny, what's your jersey of the week?
I'm not.
You look great, and I think this is a guy you loved so much, and I think this will just cheer you up and cure that illness. Jake Garcia is back in the transfer portal. There's some reports from local media out there in the Carolinas that he missed a practice and he bolted from East Carolina. Of course, started his career at Miami, played that 1 year with the Tigers as a backup, never got on the field, but now looking for his fourth home. Interesting enough, I wouldn't put it past Mizzou to maybe add a quarterback in the second spring window just to have another body in the room and not really have to rely on Matt Zollers as one of your primary backups. That's not a knock on Matt, but he's a true freshman. I don't think the answer is Jake Garcia, but I just wanted to throw that out there too, just to get Peyton going.
I will be honest with you. I mean, Jake Garcia is genuinely someone that would probably benefit from doing the Drew Pine route. Let's face it. I mean, with Jake Garcia, the end goal of probably transferring up and being a great Power 5 starter or Power 4 now is probably not going to happen for Jake Garcia. So maybe he does go somewhere. I know he already did it at Mizzou. He was the third string that year. But maybe he goes to a good developmental place for him. He sits for a year, maybe goes to a low major and just tries to kind of catch on there and have a couple of good years. Because I mean, there's that crazy tweet out there somewhere, I'm sure. I mean, this is like the 20th school in the last 8 years for him because he went to like 4 different high schools as well. So good luck to Jake Garcia. I know it's a new coaching staff that didn't recruit Jake Garcia either at East Carolina. So
I'm sorry, I can't get over these 3 tweet replies that are on the YouTube. Just really encouraging Jake Garcia to pursue his next stop. You can read those if you're watching. But yeah, that would be hilarious, Kenny, if he ended up in Mizzou's quarterback room. But yeah, you make a fair point. You just need a body. Sometimes you just need a body. You know, we saw some injuries last year.
He's familiar with the team.
He's familiar with the team. He knows the
Not
culture.
all the guys, but I mean, knows Sam Horn. So
Yeah.
there's plus there.
No, there's that. Great connection. Peyton, what's your jersey? If you have any more 2 cents on Jake Garcia, I could just make him talk about it.
yeah, my jersey of the week is going to be Cameron Meisner. Again, this is going to be the second time he's been on the show since opening day, and this is a fun one. Cameron Meisner hit a home run off of fellow MIZ alumnus Tanner Houck of the Boston Red Sox. It was a 2-run home run. It was the second home run of his career. So Cam Meisner has 2 career home runs, and we have mentioned them on the show each time. So you're welcome, Cam Meisner.
Home run tracker. If he keeps hitting home runs, we'll keep mentioning him until he comes on the show to talk about one of his home runs. I'll make that. Let's make that deal with ourselves. That can be the play. Yeah, shout out. Always fun to see some Mizzou on Mizzou crime. Look at the tracker and I'm addicted to tweet replies this show. Look at the tracker and the replies. It's kind of fun. Anyway, Kenny, you're resident baseball expert. You have any?
No, I just thought it was funny that it was a home run in 29 out of 30 ballparks and went 431 feet.
Wow.
I don't know if that's broken or not.
One park.
It says Fenway.
Fenway? Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, there you go. Irony. If it was a home game, wouldn't hit it out. Yeah. My jersey of the week, going to the NFL right now. It's Drew Lock. Drew Lock is back with the Seattle Seahawks, and this is kind of cool. The Seahawks posted this photo, very somewhat grainy looking photo of a very young Drew Lock with a young Sam Darnold, who of course also joined the Seahawks. Will be their starting quarterback this year. They were both teammates at the U.S. Army All-American game for the East. Pretty cool. There's them. I would assume fishing or doing some sort of water activity. It appears water's in the background on that. But yeah, look, they were buddies when they were growing up and up and coming high schoolers and are now teammates in the same Seahawks quarterback room. That's going to be really, really good in 2025.
Shaping up to be quite the quarterback room. I know they had Jalen Milroe in for a top 30 visit as well. So
Jackson Dart. I've heard a lot of Dart.
Yeah, very interesting approach here for Seattle.
Sam Howell in there. Hey, but good for Drew Lock. Love to see him. Love to see him come back. He did a little video and he said it never rains in Seattle, which I thought was kind of funny. But shout out.
I was doing some research on him just on his social media. Stumbled upon his wife's goodbye posts from Seattle, and they said it was the best 3 years of their life. They went to Seattle as a family of 2 and left as a family of 3. So
I was going to say, yeah, they had a kid. They had a kid while he was there. So there you go. Seattle brings the best out of everybody. Anyway,
he's the main bird.
Shawnee's main bird of the week. Kenny.
I think we were kind of done looking at some of these graphics and some of these awards that were going out. And of course, when it's an Honor Society one, Brady Cook is going to be on there. But let's shout out Christian Williams being a part of this one too. The NFF Hampshire Honor Society. Tigers had 2 guys make it. Christian Williams, my bird connection is that he was a Duck at Oregon, and then Brady Cook making it on there as well.
I mean, obviously Brady Cook's going to be on something like this, but Christian Williams was on a fair amount of the extracurricular awards as well. So definitely seemed like he's got a very solid future, no matter what winds up becoming of his football career.
Yeah. Best of luck to them both. It's never not football awards season, fellas. We could be in June, and there would be something that would come up. That's just
I don't know how we get one in April. This season was 4 months ago.
Now we're always in award season. If there's one thing we've learned from doing this podcast, award season, death taxes, and football award season is what we get.
We had someone on from the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame too, a couple of months ago, or it might have been over a year ago now too. Because it was before the Cotton Bowl. Yeah,
it was before we even knew which bowl game it was going.
Because we were talking with her about it.
We're We're getting such veteran status, we can't even remember when we had our guests on. We're old. There you go, award season. It never stops. Peyton, your main bird of the week.
My main bird of the week is going to go to two more Missouri women's basketball transfers in. Jordana Reisma was the first domino of the week to fall. Actually, the first one to debut the new bat signal for Kelly Harper.
Oh, yes.
She was a forward at Cleveland State last year, put up some really eye-popping numbers. The other transfer in is actually someone that may have some ties to the university already. It's Jordana Shannon from Illinois State. Sorry, Shannon Dowell. I don't know why I got the names mixed up. I'm very ill.
He's very. We'll give him some slack. Give him some slack. Hey, it's not as bad as the Showtime Lakers, Peyton.
Yeah, Shannon Dowell from Illinois State, another just very dynamic scorer, pretty good size, very translatable to the SEC, I would think. But two very exciting ones. I texted this to you guys yesterday when I was on the women's beat. I did like a story like about transfers in, and I looked at all of the ones under Pinchton. Obviously, Pinchton came in when the transfer portal was not near what it was. And I would genuinely say, like, other than probably maybe Lauren Hansen, these two are probably the more like ones that stand out comparatively. So it's pretty exciting. We know that obviously there was a bigger commitment to women's basketball. Kelly Harper got to hire more assistants. I'm sure she was promised a bigger NIL pool than what Pinchton had, and putting it to good use so far. There's still a whole ton of roster turnover to go with this program, but very encouraging first collection of transfers, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Mari about like the team building aspect that she had and the recruiting pull that she probably was going to have just based on her, I mean, pedigree alone coming from Tennessee and the kind of success she had as a player. Like, I'm sure that is like, you think of a lot of these coaches are former players. For some reason, the first one that came to my mind is like a John Shire at Duke, and like that's got to help. Obviously, Duke just has an elevated recruiting profile, but like when you can do that as a former player, I think that's big.
The one connection I have here, I believe it's cousin. So Peyton told me this as well, but Jason Dowell, who's a 2025 signee from the state of Illinois for Mizzou football, defensive tackle, big wrestler. They call him a gentle giant at his high school. He's coming over to Mizzou at the same time, so pretty cool to see.
Yeah, always love the good Mizzou connection. I like that. Also, Peyton, you didn't say your bird connection, which I assume is Illinois State.
Yes, Shannon comes in from Illinois State. They are the Redbirds. That is the bird connection.
Love the mid-major pipeline there. My main bird of the week, just ticking off, some more portal news. A guy we discussed for a couple shows. A guy I personally was hoping would end up in a Mizzou uniform, but alas. First of all, bird connection. He is a former South Carolina Gamecock bird. It's Nick Pringle, the center, of course, veteran of the SEC at this point. He unfortunately went to Arkansas, Mizzou's arch rival, of course, in the portal. Bummer. I would have loved to see Nick Pringle. I am excited about Phillips. I think that satisfied some of your, kind of rebounding needs there. But I am a personal fan of Nick Pringle, so I picked this transfer out specifically. We've been going through, obviously, ticking them off the board as they go to other places, just guys we mentioned. He was one. Mizzou seemed like a fit possibly there, but he ends up at Arkansas, so now Mizzou will have to face Nick Pringle again in the SEC next season.
Yeah, bummer. Knowlton and I we're really pounding the table for this for a couple of years, and he goes to the most bitter rival.
I can say it now that he went to Arkansas. I could have potentially got Nick Pringle on as a guest, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh well,
it was
too
partially
late.
Rooting for that. Good for the show. All right. Well, that'll be a hard game to root for. Best thing you learned, Peyton.
I got one quick one to throw in there about the transfer portal. Another name that came off the board that Mizzou was connected to was Brendan Housen. He's from I believe Amarillo, Texas. So he went to Villanova originally, then went to Kansas State. But he's going to Iowa. Nothing really more to say there other than Peyton, who coaches for Iowa now?
Ben McCollum coaches for Iowa.
Thank you. What was the best thing you learned this week?
Best thing I learned this week.
Wally's sick too.
The 1997 Seattle Mariners were absolutely loaded in the photography department. That tweet comes from Reddit CFB. Ordinarily, I don't care for that account, but this was a good tweet. Because Ken Griffey Jr. Was a credentialed photographer, I believe, for Getty Images. At the Masters, he took a really great photo of Rory McIlroy after the win. This is also my promised Masters quick hit. Rory did it. That's what we were rooting for. Well, most actual golf
That's a
fans were
great
rooting
tweet.
for. If Randy had taken it. So there you go. I did not know Ken Griffey was a credentialed reporter. Rory wound up coming out on top of the greatest Masters final round that I have ever watched. So good for Rory. Good for the game of golf. Thank goodness Bryson didn't win.
Agreed. I'm glad we got the Ken Griffey Jr. thing in here because that is really cool that he was doing that and got a chance. Yeah, the Masters was phenomenal. I saw Kenny in person for the first time in a long time on Master Sunday, and the first thing I said to him was, "Were you guys watching that?" Because that was unbelievable. I mean, drama, playoff, Rory choking it 3 times in a row. Peyton, you're our resident golf expert. I mean, did you think he was done when he missed the putt on 18? Did you think he was going to lose the bonus hole?
Yes, I thought
Playoff
Justin Rose was going to smoke him on the playoff. I really did not expect Rory to be able to recover because we've been here a few times before with Rory, but it was a more storybook ending, I think, in the end. It would have been a little more fitting if it had come over Bryson, but unfortunately Bryson was a no-show, didn't hold up his end of the bargain because he's no good, and it was Rory's day.
Kenny,
You're gonna hate next year when he wins it.
Yeah, Kenny, you're a big live guy, right?
He's
What do
gonna
you
put
think
his
of this?
Reebok patches all over that jacket with the live one,
Jeez.
the skull and crossbones. Oh, you're gonna hate it, Peyton.
Yeah, you're
Kenny's
correct.
Kenny's a big live guy.
He's good for the sport.
No, I disagree.
It was an awesome
But-
round of golf. I was pumped watching that.
Yes, I think I know obviously there's probably ones from when I was younger that I didn't watch, but the ones I've watched personally, that was probably the most dramatic, entertaining, storyline driven, just the best round of golf I've ever watched.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic golf. Kenny, your best thing you learned?
Best thing I learned this week. This comes from ESPN report. Jeff Borzalo. He reported Old Dominion forward Sean Dura-Gordon has entered the transfer portal per source, averaged 15.7 points and 9.1 rebounds this past season. Previously made stops at Siena, Austin Peay, and Missouri. 4 schools in 4 years for Sean Dura-Gordon. I saw some people saying how is he still playing college basketball? It feels like he's so old. In my mind, Sean Dura-Gordon's still like an 18-year-old sitting at the end of the bench that just showed up out of nowhere mid-season for Conzo Martin. But it's really cool to kind of see those guys still going just at different times and with different schools. And I really was high on Sean Dura-Gordon there. But congrats to him that he's continuing this long career.
Yeah, no, Sean Dura-Gordon. I do remember that when we just went to the Kenny and I went to the COVID South Carolina game, and they just threw this Sean Dura-Gordon guy on the board. I was like, I don't know who this is. Just you don't see mid-season enrollees, at Missouri very often. Then he played 10 games the next year, and that was it. Best of luck to Sean Dura-Gordon. You're always number one in my heart.
I've not looked into his metrics, but he put up pretty good numbers by the looks of it. I don't know where his interest would be, but yeah, I remember that because it was weird. It was during COVID too, and he would I think before he was enrolled, and I also have a take on that. I think there's a reason you don't see many midseason enrollees who do that redshirt thing. I don't think it works very often, but I think it was before he was enrolled. I remember being at a game and he was sitting. I don't know if this was because of COVID and they had the benches separated, but he was on the baseline, just chilling. I think before he started playing. I can't remember when that was, but I remember that and just being who is the same thing as Peyton? Who is this guy? good Mizzou lore guy for sure. Part of that Austin P pipeline, which is always great.
He had a good performance against Kansas in his
He did?
first year actually playing. I remember we were sitting at Buffalo Wild Wings, like, oh my God, Sean Duergordon might be one of the
future.
answers for this future rotation. But
That
he
was the
transferred.
return of the rivalry too.
Yep.
Sean Duergordon was getting serious minutes.
Sean Duergordon walked so Anthony Robinson could run. My best thing I learned, it's not really the best thing I learned because it's kind of sad to see him go, but we talked some coaching stuff on the Mizzou side at the top of the show, but just to cap it off, obviously the news, well known, I'm sure right by now, CY Young is off to Miami. He's going to be their associate head coach. Obviously a bummer. I mean, I really like to see CY Young, coming in with Dennis. I love that story. Obviously, he's well known on the recruiting side of things for Mizzou. I'm going to miss him, I think, the most in the videos, of him just kind of getting the guys hyped at halftime and being kind of that energy guy. But obviously, we'll see how he does. Best of luck to him at Miami. But like we said at the top, means some coaching vacancies for Mizzou. But yeah, CY to the U back in the ACC.
I'll be honest, like, I'm not as heartbroken, I think, as a lot of people are. I kind of felt the coaching staff could use a little new blood. And I'm not saying CY was a bad coach or anything, but I mean, I am saying I don't think it's going to be an insurmountable loss. I mean, you kind of look at, like you mentioned, Knowlton, he was brought in to be a recruiting ace, and he brought in Anthony Robinson.
Yeah.
Cannot say enough about that. But I mean, other than that, I mean, who are the big recruiting wins that we know were like CYs? Like, because I know Boateng was Smith Peters. A lot of the JUCO guys were Smith Peters.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. Like recruiting,
Nut brought in a fair amount of guys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like most of the guys he brought in left,
right?
And that's just kind of the hard thing about recruiting freshmen right now. If they're not going to perform right away and play right away, then they might leave, which is pretty much just what everything is these days: football, basketball, whatever sport you're looking at in the transfer portal. But Jordan Butler was his guy. Marcus Allen, we heard so many positives about that relationship. Peyton Marshall as well. Peyton, we saw that firsthand.
Yeah,
in the Shack, and so. So yeah, he hit a lot of those guys. We flipped Peyton Marshall from Auburn, brought Marcus Allen in, and I'm with you though, Peyton. I don't think people should be bent out of shape or just it's the name CY Young or just CY and everyone hearing it's like he's the best staffer, he's the best assistant. Everyone just knows all these fun stories about him. But at the same time, he's going to a place he knows well, going to his home state, and it's a little bit further away from I think Tallahassee is where he's from, or Jacksonville. So. It's still, just some people call it a lateral move, but he can go there now and pick up their recruiting for a new staff at Miami. So it's just one of those things where he's just going back to a familiar place and doing the same thing he did well at Mizzou.
Yeah, I think the thing I was surprised by was I always had felt, he'd heard, and it wasn't just like, I don't even know if he was necessarily the top assistant, but he was the primary one that was named just because he was part of that Dennis, he was as equal to Dennis when that culture was kind of getting cemented when they both came over. And like, I think the thing I was surprised by is I had always just kind of assumed, you'd enjoy CY Young for a while and then, he'd go be a head coach somewhere. I think that's what had been kind of thinking, and he'd start that. But you're seeing a lot of guys now, especially these kind of ace recruiters, sort of just bouncing around staffs or sticking on staffs just because, you can make, especially if you're good at recruiting the portal, like, there's so much value in that. Like these schools are going to pay a lot of money for that nowadays. And so like, it's definitely not shocking. It's a good landing spot for CY, like you said, in his home state. So
an interesting thing I learned too, just on the recruiting trail for him. I kind of heard this story loosely, but he does this pitch where, he tells me he wants to get you that handshake, and the handshake is when you walk across the stage at the NBA draft. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's his pitch. That's what he's trying to get you to do, is walk across that stage. I will throw out there too, Peyton Marshall said that one of his schools, when they announced those lists and they gave them out to those different accounts, he did say Miami was one of the schools that reached out to him.
Yeah, not going to be a shock. Not going to be a shock. So yeah, you might see some Miami Mizzou battles now going forward. Maybe we'll pick from the same pools from recruiting with CY there, but yeah, we'll see how he does at Miami. That's all I got, boys. Joke, Peyton.
I sure do. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys,
Yes, Peyton?
what do cake and baseball have in common?
I don't know, Peyton. What do cake and baseball have in common?
Any
Batter,
guesses?
batter, batter.
Yes, Kenny,
Oh,
correct.
nice,
They both
Kenny.
mean batter.
Boom, 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 boom.
There you go, Kenny. Well done.
Well done, Kenny. All right. That'll do for the unwritten rule. More off-season news coming. We're getting closer to Mount Rushmore season. Let us know if you want to see that in the summertime when that approaches. And I've been solo screen, so that cues the end of the show. I'm throwing another Masters was awesome in there. That was so much fun to watch. I didn't get enough golf talk on that. Kenny's shaking his head in the screen down below. You can't see it, but I can see it. He looks disappointed. Now he's laughing. Ha ha ha. All right. See you guys later.